I guess this would be an opportunity for like a potential, I guess, Rushmore conversation, and
Yeah,
that would be, best hotel movies.
gotcha.
Where the setting was the hotel. I mean, it's unfair because Wes Anderson I feel like Wes Anderson took a ton of cues from this movie with his Grand Budapest Hotel, with the way
Mhm.
he framed things and some of his aesthetic tendencies. But I mean, those two movies come to mind for me. But like this movie's just like some of those ballroom shots and like the carpet.
Yeah.
So, it was just so good, man. Just like so visually strong. And so I would say those two. And then I had a hard time thinking of other ones.
No, that's fair. I will say, like, they don't make hotels like they used to, right? Like, so obviously the exterior shots of the movie are filmed at Timberline Lodge, which is local to me here in Portland. And I've obviously been to Timberline, and I knew all that. And it it has a certain look, it has a certain aesthetic, and it was built in a certain time. And as far as the interior, I know that was filmed at a hotel, and it was actually in Colorado, right?
Uh, the photos were referenced from there, but I think they shot everything on sound studios in London. But
Okay.
Yeah, he sent like photographers throughout the country to take different pictures of different hotels, and they just composited it all at a big studio. So,
well, that's
so cool.
Literally just blew my mind because it speaks to the way it speaks to the set design and the production.
Yeah, I mean, I say people still walk into that hotel and like, oh, is this the Shining one? They're like, no, I mean, it is, but it wasn't shot here. But this is what they referenced, down to the chandeliers and everything.
And this was a hotel in
Colorado. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, cool. I did not know that. That blows my mind.
So cool.
Gonna have to ruminate on that for a minute. But yeah, I think a hotel like the one that Kubrick referenced is a perfect place for, frankly, most any movie, or at least a few scenes of any movie. And yeah, to put a movie like this in a hotel like that is pretty incredible. I honestly don't know how to answer your question. I'm not very good off the top like this as far as like best hotel movies. So I think I'll defer to our guest Justin and see if he's got any ideas there.
Hotel Transylvania.
I've been trying to rack my brain on, that's it's interesting. I'm sure you go in the, if we look, if we dig deep enough, I'm sure we'll find a plethora of them.
Sure.
But I was kind of drawing a blank here, trying to think of other films that have been set in hotels that.
Can we pretend Die Hard was in a hotel? I know it's an office complex, but it's a big building.
Well, I mean,
you have Psycho. Psycho's not quite a hotel, but it's
but very close though. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one I thought of was the Sofia Coppola movie Somewhere, which takes place in the Chateau Marmont in LA.
Or what about Lost in Translation? That's in a hotel most of the time.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And there's a movie called Four Rooms. And it's like four different segments in a movie. Tarantino did one, Robert Rodriguez, and they each do a different segment. That's all kind of in a hotel. What's his name? I can't think of his name. Tim Roth. He plays like the bellhop. I think he's the through line for all four segments. So that one's pretty good too. I like that one.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at a list here because I know there's stuff out there. Oh, Hotel Rwanda. That was really cool.
Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2.
Oh,
call back to the MVP, her pick for a Rushmore, Hotel Chevalier.
Oh yeah,
Natalie Portman. Yeah, I mean, it's such an I hate to say easy in like the pejorative sense, but hotels typically look pretty cool. They have some design aesthetic on the inside, and like we talked about before, they house a lot of people, and people leave remnants of themselves, both like literally and in the more spiritual sense. So it's a pretty easy place to put a movie.
And in theory, that's a foreign location to everybody that's there. It's not their house or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the last thing I want to talk about, because as much as we've talked about the visual aesthetic of this movie and the performances, one of my favorite things about this was the score and how much the the audio of a film always informs what you're seeing, but I think the score was used to great effect here, and obviously the sound design and everything. And I think it would be foolish to not mention it to some degree. I honestly don't really know what else I can say about it other than it. To me, it was perfectly done, and I love the score. And I'm not sure who did it, and I'm curious. Maybe some of you guys have some insight there, but I don't know. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, I mean that was the one thing I kind of wanted to bring up, just because it really struck me how much it influenced, the feeling. Like, obviously, I think you can make the argument that the sound of a movie is the most important part of a movie. Like, if it's not realistic, nothing else is going to work at all. And I just really appreciated how much the sound element like really emphasized the hauntingness of this film. It just made it really kind of creepy. Like, obviously it's a scary movie and stuff, but just all like the kind of sounds they were making and the score and everything, like, just really elevated the whole film. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, totally. There's that scene where Halloran is like showing all the inventory in like the pantries and stuff, and like the music kicks in. You're like, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You're just like, well, we've got Captain Crunch over here and some steaks over here.
And that's also where he pulls the switcheroo with the Halloran can obviously they speak telepathically.
Oh yeah.
Right? And we've got the music there, and it makes you feel like, oh shit, this is the bad guy. Like this guy is the reason for all the bad things. And obviously, thankfully, that turns out to not be the case. But yeah. Justin, what do you think about the score here?
Oh yeah, great. And I think to a certain extent, you key in on it a lot more, kind of like the horror movie type genre, supernatural. Like, Ben's right. You said, if you were watching any movie without a score, it'd be jarring.
Yeah.
And yeah, this one was done masterfully. A great score is going to add to it, add to, I referenced kind of There Will Be Blood earlier. That's another type of score where it just adds to the emotion, the connection that you have with the characters, the connection that the viewer has with what is happening, emotionally, and not just through the plot. And it's great, when it's when it allows you to make that connection, but it isn't so overbearing that you become aware that the score is, creating this emotion with me. It's kind of enhancing the experience.
That's a good point, because the score is definitely, I feel like the score in this movie sits up front, like you're always aware that there's some sort of music or there's some sort of auditory sensation, right? Like you're never, to me, the score was always present, but it didn't seem obvious, or it didn't seem like it definitely seemed to go hand in hand with what you were seeing. It wasn't like what you're seeing isn't terrifying and the score is trying to make it seem that way. Right. It seemed like an actual auditory representation of what you're seeing on screen. And it's really impressive. I know, like, Ben, you and I have talked about it, with audio being arguably the most important part of a visual medium, which is strange, but I feel like it was perfectly done here. I didn't write this on our thing, our little shared document, but I was curious. We've talked about how meticulous and how, quote, perfect this movie is, but I'm curious if you guys had any nitpicks or anything that stood out to you. That I had one. The only reason I asked this is because I had one and I'm selfish and I want to talk about it. So I'm going to make you guys talk about it too. But, Ben, you and I have worked with drone footage quite a bit. And one thing that used to be a problem was cutting out you can see the prop shadow. And there was one shot, like, first of all, before I, critique this, I have to shout out, like, the aerial footage in the beginning of this film following the car around was just absolutely incredible. It's hard enough to get a steady shot with the technology we have now with drones and gimbals, and the fact they were able to do this with a film camera in some whatever helicopter in Colorado and get these incredible shots is one thing, but there was some prop shadow in one of the shots, the aerial shots, which really bummed me out as someone who's had to deal with that personally. And the fact that Kubrick let it happen upset me maybe more than it should have. So that's probably the only thing I could pick apart from this movie. And I'm curious, and I know you guys weren't prompted, but did you have any nitpicks or anything that stood out to you that kind of took you out of the movie at all? Justin, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, I'm definitely gonna have to look for that prop shadow. That'll be interesting. Now you're talking about that. I know that, so the Steadicam, and a lot of it might be just due to, obviously the technology. You can't compare it. It's not fair to compare it to what you have now necessarily. But there were a couple times where it kind of took me out. I think there was one Steadicam shot of Wendy when she's had. I think it's near the end of the film when she has a knife, and I could almost feel the Steadicam judder a little bit. And that took me out of the film, for just a split second, because I realized, that's kind of a Steadicam bump right there, or something like that. But,
and maybe it was almost necessary because, like, we don't want to go as crazy as the characters we're seeing on screen. So maybe a slight bump back to reality might not be the worst thing.
Hey, it's okay. You're just watching a movie.
What about you, Matt? Did anything stick out to you that you can think of?
Not really. I mean, there's those craft, critiques that I don't ever really think about. And for the most part, I don't have complaints about. I know there's like stylistic, like shaky cam stuff these days that like, it's more of a choice that they do that I'm like, oh, I don't really love all the shaky cam in this movie. But I did notice some of the Steadicam stuff. But I guess I'm not as big of a snob about those type of things to be like, aha.
Yeah.
That, but
that's fair.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints. I'm sure if I had read the book, there'd be like something like Ben mentioned, like the Shelley Duvall character, just like basically not being anything like the character in the book.
Yeah. Maybe
that would have bothered me. Not to say that like not a book to movie comparison, but it's like, if Hagrid's a short guy with blonde hair, maybe there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, but, like if Frodo is somehow 6 feet tall, like that's a problem. Ben, you are the resident master editor here. You are my editing inspiration, filmmaking guru. Was there anything else that you could nitpick out of this?
I mean, honestly, I feel kind of the opposite on it. Like there were some issues, obviously, but it was shot by the dude who literally created the Steadicam. Okay. His name is Garrett Brown, and he
create it for the the big wheel scenes, because I loved those scenes.
I mean, that was one of the first ones I think to use the wheelchair technique to shoot that, where they put the camera low to the ground, and he was just kind of in this like wheelchair rig, having someone push him while he was holding it, which was cool. But yeah, it's the dude who like created it, and it was used, I think, for the first time on Rocky just like 4 years earlier. So the one thing I wanted to mention, I meant to mention it earlier, and it's the opposite of a nitpick. It just goes back to the sound design, though, in that scene where the three-wheeler goes over the carpet and then on the hardwood and then over the carpet. Like, man, the sound design is so good.
Okay, so there's awesome. My second nitpick, because they didn't always do that. I don't know, because that stuck out to me. I was like, that is incredible. Like the attention to detail to really accentuate those sounds, but they didn't always do it. And I don't know if that's by design or by accident, but I will agree with you and disagree and make it my second nitpick.
Perfect.
And it's, it's hard to
conflict.
It's hard to nitpick a movie like this and a director like Kubrick. I mean, we've at length discussed the means at which he took, to get where we ended up with his films. But in the end, every Kubrick film that I've seen is, I don't want to say perfect, but they are. It seems that what we see is what he wanted us to see. And that's a hard thing to do. And so I think it's something that should be celebrated, but also, questioned as to whether or not it was all worth it. For me, I think a hesitant yes, it was worth it. But